A boy sits at a dinner table in a house with marble floors and a view of the water. His father slides a folder across the table. Not a report card, not a phone. A folder full of numbers, stocks, a small rental property, a business ledger. The boy is 11 years old, 3 miles away in a comfortable middle-class home. Another 11-year-old sits at a different table. Same intelligence, same work ethic waiting to be built. But the folder never comes. Nobody hands him numbers. Nobody explains what an asset is. He gets something else instead. A chore chart, an allowance, and the quiet, well-meaning advice to study hard and get a good job. Both boys will grow up. Both will work hard. Only one of them was handed a language the other was never taught. This isn't a story about luck. It isn't a story about privilege in the way people usually mean it. It's a story about information, quiet, invisible information, passed down at kitchen tables, in car rides, in the small comments parents make without even realizing they're teaching anything at all. And once you see these hidden rules, you can't unsee them. Here's the strange part. None of this is hidden because someone is hiding it. It's hidden because it's boring to talk about. Nobody makes a movie about a teenager reading a shareholder letter. Nobody films a father calmly explaining depreciation over breakfast. It doesn't look dramatic. It looks like nothing. And that's exactly why it works. The most powerful advantages rarely look powerful while they're happening. Middle-class households, generally speaking, don't lack love or effort. They lack exposure. Financial habits are absorbed the same way accents are, through repetition, through the adults in the room, long before a child is old enough to ask questions. If a home's daily rhythm revolves around a paycheck, spending decisions, and the occasional stress about bills, a child absorbs that rhythm. If a home's daily rhythm revolves around ownership, patience, and long-term thinking, a child absorbs that instead. Nobody sits either child down and explains the difference. It just becomes the water they swim in. So let's walk through what that water actually looks like, rule by rule, room by room. Picture a young couple who just received their first real bonus at work. In one home, the money quietly disappears into a brokerage account before it ever touches a lifestyle upgrade. In another home, that same bonus becomes a new car, a vacation, something visible. Neither choice is about greed or carelessness. It's about which idea got planted first. Wealthy families tend to treat the first move with new money as a rule, almost a reflex. Put it to work before you enjoy it. Save and invest first, spend what's left. Not the other way around. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but compounded over 20, 30, 40 years. That single ordering of operations is the difference between a family that owns appreciating assets and a family that owns depreciating ones. The psychology here is about identity, not discipline. If a child grows up watching money get placed before it gets spent, saving doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like the default setting. In a lot of households, money is treated almost like a trophy, something you receive after suffering through a task you didn't enjoy. Work is the punishment. Money is the prize. In wealthier households, the framing quietly flips. Money isn't the reward for labor. It's equipment for building something, a tool like a hammer or a spreadsheet. You don't worship a hammer. You use it to build a house. This reframing changes behavior in a subtle but massive way. A person who sees money as a reward tends to spend it the moment it arrives, because rewards are meant to be enjoyed. A person who sees money as a tool tends to ask a different question entirely. What can this tool build next? Here's a scene that plays out constantly, almost invisibly in wealthy families. A young heir wants a nicer car. Instead of buying it outright, a parent asks a different question. Does the business or the portfolio support this purchase yet? If not, the answer is patience, not punishment. This is the ownership before consumption principle in action. It's not about denying pleasure. Wealthy families spend plenty. It's about sequence. Buy the thing that earns money before you buy the thing that costs money. A rental property before a luxury car. A stake in a business before a wardrobe upgrade. Luxury isn't forbidden. It's simply scheduled for after the asset column is already growing on its own. Middle-class households, often without any bad intentions at all, tend to reverse this order simply because nobody ever explained there was an order to begin with. Ask a middle-class teenager what they want to be when they grow up, and you'll usually hear a job title: doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher. Ask a teenager raised inside a family business or an investing household the same question, and you'll often hear something different. Not a title, but a structure. I want to own something. This is one of the most quietly powerful differences in how wealth transfers across generations. Employment trades hours for dollars, And the trade stops the moment you stop showing up. Ownership of a business, of property, of shares in a company keeps producing income whether you show up or not. Wealthy families don't necessarily discourage jobs. Many of the richest people in modern history built fortunes by starting as employees or founders who built something from nothing. What they teach differently is the goal underneath the job. Use employment as a stepping stone toward ownership, not as the final destination. There's a quiet ritual in a lot of wealthy households that looks almost old-fashioned. Waiting. Waiting a week before a big purchase. Waiting a year before upgrading a car. Waiting for a business to prove itself before scaling it. This isn't natural willpower. It's engineered, deliberately, the same way a muscle is trained. Children are given small, repeated exercises in patience. Save for something instead of receiving it immediately. Wait for a milestone instead of an impulse, until patience becomes an unconscious habit, rather than a painful discipline. Psychologists have long studied the connection between the ability to delay gratification early in life and long-term life outcomes. Wealthy families, often instinctively rather than scientifically, build environments that practice this skill constantly. Middle-class households, stretched thin by immediate needs, often don't have the same margin to practice patience, not because they lack character, but because urgency crowds it out. Walk into the home of a self-made investor or founder, and you'll often find something unremarkable at first glance. Shelves of books, actually read, dog-eared and underlined. Not for decoration, for extraction. Wealthy people across industries tend to treat reading as an ongoing form of due diligence on life itself, learning from other people's decades of experience in a matter of hours. This habit gets modeled, not lectured. A child who watches a parent read every night absorbs the behavior long before understanding the reasoning behind it. Curiosity becomes the family default, and curiosity compounds just like money does. There's a reason wealthy families introduce their children to investing years before their peers. A custodial brokerage account opened before a driver's license, a small stake in a company explained around the dinner table. It's not about the size of the amount. It's about starting the clock. Compounding rewards time far more than it rewards the size of the initial investment. A small amount invested at 15 can outperform a much larger amount invested at 30, simply because it had more years to grow. Wealthy families understand this not as trivia, but as a lived, generational strategy. Start early, stay patient, let time do the heaviest lifting. Somewhere along the way, most wealthy entrepreneurs learn a truth that most employees never get taught. There are only 24 hours in a day, and if your income is tied directly to your hours, your income has a ceiling. So instead, they build systems, businesses, processes, investments that keep producing value while they sleep. This is the quiet difference between a highly paid professional and a wealthy family. One trades time for money at a very high rate. The other builds something that generates money independent of any single person's time at all. Wealthy families tend to treat relationships less like friendships and more like infrastructure. Durable, maintained, valuable long before they're ever needed. Dinners, introductions, memberships, mentorships, not transactional in an ugly sense, but intentional in a quiet one. Opportunities, deals, and warnings about risk often arrive through a phone call, not a job application. And finally, perhaps the most misunderstood rule of all, wealthy families are not reckless. They are calculated. Insurance, diversification, legal structures, contingency planning. These are taught as seriously as any business lesson, because protecting wealth is treated as equally important to building it. None of these rules require inherited money to learn. They require exposure, and exposure can start today, at any age, in any household. The tragedy was never that middle-class families didn't work hard enough. It's that an entire language of wealth was simply never spoken at their table. The folder can still be opened. It's just never too late to ask for it. And maybe that's the real inheritance, and not the money itself, but the permission to think differently about it. The families who pass down wealth aren't just passing down dollars. They're passing down a way of seeing the world. One folder, one conversation, one quiet decision at a time. And now that you've seen it too, you get to decide what you pass down next. Thanks for watching. If this opened your eyes even a little, hit subscribe, because the next hidden rule might be the one that changes everything for you.